Chelsea FC 2, West Ham United 1. A heart-wrenching defeat across the other side of London on Monday night for Graham Potter's Claret and Blue Army, leaving us 15th in the Premier League table with David Moyes' Everton breathing down our necks. And yeah, I mean, a top half finish, still I suppose on. We're 7 points away from Brighton, who are in 10th. We are also 10 points above Leicester, 18th, the highest in the relegation zone. So still not going down. Are we finishing the top half? Maybe not. The whole sort of season is kind of over, as we've covered already a few times. We're certainly not getting into Europe. That is for sure. But it was really, really disappointing. I was in the away end at Stamford Bridge on Monday night, and I felt we were such good value for 65 minutes, and then that total little collapse, not dissimilar to when we lost against Aston Villa. It felt like to me in the FA Cup, I believe, when we just sort of had that little 10 minutes in the second half where they were a better team, scored 2 goals. And we totally collapsed. I'm Will Pugh, joined by James Jones. Hello to everyone who's listening and who's back. I'm just going to call it out now. It's Tuesday night. Both Jonesy and I are absolutely exhausted. Now, many a time in this podcast's storied 5-year history, be it in the early days when we used to arrive at the studio after a long day at work, or in the latter days of the We Are West Ham podcast rather than a live radio show, have I started a podcast in a fairly bad mood, and then James Jones, such as his ability as a close friend of mine now, has cheered me right up. I told James this before we went on air, but his huff and sigh about his day was almost as loud as mine. So buckle up, because this could be one of the most downbeat We Are West Ham podcasts in history, but we'll do our very best to pretend we're both not shattered. Jonesy, great to see you, mate, as ever. Chelsea 2, West Ham 1. I think that's part of it for me. It was a late night. Off on the end of a long day at work, up early again this morning, another long day, loads going on. And I'm just still angry about it. I was really annoyed. And it was brilliant when we went 1-0 up. I thought we really sort of played well and conducted ourselves well. And it's just that stupid, annoying collapse a bit. It felt really self-inflicted. And if I'm honest, a couple of weird subs I felt from Graham Potter, 4 weird subs really, 2 the weird ones that he did, bringing off Soufal and Emerson, and also 2 about the same time, the weird ones that he didn't do, which was leaving Irving and Soler on for too long when they were clearly absolutely exhausted, particularly Andy Irving. I've done a lot of talking so far, mate. 3 minutes in. How are you? What were your thoughts on the game? How are you feeling? Because I'm still just a bit downbeat about it all.
I suppose it's worth pointing out that I'm downbeat because I've got deadline day hangover, as opposed to downbeat because we lost to Chelsea. Absolutely knackered after a long day, but I didn't. The full-time whistle went, and I was like, well, I kind of expect us to lose today anyway. But what I did see was a little bit of fight and a little bit of. I saw West Ham compete for, we can count probably on one hand how many times we've done that this season.
Yeah.
And I think also, you've described it as a second half 10-minute collapse.
It literally was, wasn't it? 64 Pedro Neto's goal. Luck again, sort of. That's what's annoyed me as well. Both goals, particularly Sim, were so lucky. But 64 and then 74 Aaron Wan-Bissaka's own goal.
That's why I think calling it a collapse is pretty strong, mate. I think. I wouldn't call it a collapse. I thought Chelsea were the better team in the second half. Well, for most of the second half anyway. We were the better team in the first. And they scored 2 fortunate goals. I thought the second one especially, that's the second
time. Lucky.
That's the second time it's happened to it. It happened at City as well, when it came off Soufal's leg and looped over one of the whichever goalkeeper we decided to play that day. And the first one, there was clear foul in the build-up. You know, there are question marks. You know, was it too far away from the goal for them to call it back? Well, you know,
what a load of crap that is.
Then,
ignore calling it back. The referee should have seen it. So I'm so annoyed, James. Go on, carry on.
Yeah, but then also, and then you got the VAR check on did it or did it not hit the Chelsea? I can't pronounce the Chelsea striker's name. Is it Gui or Guy or?
Yeah, who knows? I don't think there is an official.
It's a weird.
Even he changes it day to day.
You've got too many vowels in your name, mate. Cut that out. But did it touch his head? Did it not? If it did, then it's offside. And the commentators are going, oh, you know, well, they can only rule it out if there's clear evidence that it's touched him.
Shut up.
And it's like, well, I mean, if that was the case, then there'd be plenty of goals that would have been ruled out or would have been given over the years, because we've seen lots of goals disallowed for very tenuous VAR checks over the years.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it looks like it probably did. But you can see why some people might think it probably didn't. For me, it's like you either rule it out for that offside, you rule it out for the clear barge on Jared Bowen when he's trying to chase the ball down on the other end of the pitch about 10 seconds earlier. And so,
I mean, that, go on.
With that in mind, with that in mind, I've felt like, you know, okay, in the second half, Chelsea were better than us. They were on top for large parts. And probably deserved to win the game back on the basis of that. But, and I said this to a colleague of mine earlier, who's a Chelsea fan, but Chelsea fans or Chelsea would have had no right to be disappointed had we snatched a draw at the end, or maybe even held on to a 1-0 win. It was one of those games.
They were rubbish.
It was one of those games where either side could have won it, and no one could have really had many complaints either way. And a draw probably would have been a fairer result.
Totally.
And given the situation we're in and the turmoil that we've been in all season, with all that said and done, I'm like, do you know what? I can't really be that downbeat about it, because, yes, it's frustrating, but I'm not going to go all Arsenal fan on everyone and start crying conspiracy and start moaning about the VAR and the refs and how everyone's against us and, you know, everyone hates us, and you know, like, it is what it is. Like, we've had so many over the years that it's kind of like, well, all right, fair enough. And so many against Chelsea, by the way, that it's like, well, of course they're not going to give that to us, so whatever. We're going to have to try and beat them fairly and squarely. And we almost nicked something at the end there. So I'm not that downbeat about it. I think there was enough positive signs out of it to suggest with the full strength squad, because don't forget we had one centre back and 3 fullbacks in that starting defence, and we didn't have a striker.
4 fullbacks, wasn't it? Soufal, Emerson, Cresswell, and Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah.
I don't know if Wan-Bissaka counts as a fullback anymore, does he?
No, yeah, he's an inverted winger these days.
Yeah,
but yeah, like if you consider that was our defence and we had a striker, we didn't have a striker, and we only conceded 2 very fortunate goals against Chelsea's side that includes Cole Palmer, who just scores for fun these days.
Yeah, but
I'm not upset about
he was rubbish as well.
Yeah,
he did nothing.
Just a rubbish Andy Irving, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'll be honest, mate. I'm quite happy, because at least all I'm confident in the dynamic of tonight's podcast, or this podcast, like, it would be like a TV or a radio producer would be buzzing with this, because we're 2 sides of the story. You're fairly placid about it. I'm still fuming. I'm annoyed about all the decisions. I'm annoyed about the game. I'm annoyed about Kudus and Wan-Bissaka. Anyone who thinks they're good, like, doesn't have 2 eyes in their head. I know God knows when the last time Kudus made an actual contribution to a goal. Jared Bowen, he's an absolute world-class player, mate. He's absolutely mustard. We're so lucky to have him. He's brilliant. And he turns up every week and shows people how it's done. Give me Jared Bowen's right leg. I'd have Jared Bowen's little finger over a Mohammed Kudus or a Paqueta or whatever. We did miss Paqueta, I think, a bit. But Jared Bowen, he's just everything that's right about everything you want in a footballer. He should be our highest paid player by a million miles. No, he's up there, and rightfully so. He's brilliant, doing a brilliant job as captain. There are those who would have said that extra burden might have sort of affected his performances a bit. Has it hell? He's been absolutely brilliant. And I think loads of players in our team, particularly in our second half, some of our decision making was so bad. And I include Potter in that as well, to be fair. could do with taking a leaf out of Jared Bowen's book. He worked his absolute nuts off last night, deserved his goal, and he's everything good about West Ham, is Jared Bowen. Also, James, the transfer window. Excuse me, I'm still trying to get rid of this 2-week viral cough. And by viral, I don't mean like viral because loads of people have seen me doing it on Instagram. I just think it is a virus. Evan Ferguson arrived on loan, which I think is a monumentally good signing. Like I'm like going to say it in my angry voice. It's going to be one of those things where I'm saying good stuff in an angry tone of voice. And James Ward-Prowse coming back, which I think is good as well. So tell you what we'll do, James. We'll do the Chelsea reaction next, and then I'll get your thoughts on transfer window to wrap up. We'll also do some Patreon messages. Don't forget you can sign up for ad-free listening and to get the podcast a day earlier than your non-Patreon counterparts if you sign up to the patreon.com/wearewestham-podcast. I had a lovely message from Mark Scott the other day, James, who always he's got that weird sort of thing where seems to delight in messaging me, telling me that what we're doing is a load of rubbish, but still listens every week. His latest installment, which did make me laugh an awful lot, I must admit, was so glad I'm not weighing out for Patreon to listen to Hamster Chat.
Oh, mate, don't start digging out Spoon, otherwise you're not welcome, mate.
Exactly. Yeah, you've been told, mate.
Don't start digging out my hamster.
Exactly. Plenty of people loving the Hamster Chat, though, Jones. I must admit. Surely by now, if people don't realise that's what we're all about, the We Are West Ham podcast, and you clearly haven't been listening for very long. So thanks to everyone who signed up so far to patreon.com/We Are West Ham podcast, as we've explained already. If you like what we do and you've liked it for a long time or not very long at all, but you want to support me and James and ensure that this podcast carries on next season, that's a viable endeavour for James and I, then please do consider supporting us at patreon.com/We Are West Ham podcast. It hardly costs anything. Less than a price a cup of coffee, and you get at least 2 podcasts a week, which will be the opposition view, the reaction stuff, and any bonus bits along the way. Sometimes you get 3 pods a week if we have a couple of games. Follow us on socials as well. We Are West Ham podcast, so search that on your favourite platform and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Stay with us, because we will do some messages next. We'll have a look back at the Chelsea game, and then we'll finish with some thoughts on the transfer window. I've realised that's what it is, Jonesy. Like, I think I was just annoyed about the game last night. I was so disappointed afterwards. And you know what it's like, right? And I know what you mean about you weren't expecting anything before the game. And I do agree with you, right, on the positive performance side. And this is what I've been saying to anyone who's asked me, like non-West Ham fans who've asked me about Potter. I just say, well, we look like, when West Ham play a game of football, we look like a normal football team. We look like a group of 11 players who've played a football game before and know the basic fundamentals of competing in a football game. We're sort of playing a formation that sort of makes sense. None of our players are doing that much weird stuff, and we're not. I had someone in the a journalist friend of a colleague of mine last night after the game, West Ham fan. Andy Dillon, who's been on here before, lots of you might know him. Andy Dillon covers Chelsea, the Chelsea correspondent for the Sun, but he's a West Ham fan, and I sort of heard him say, under Lopetegui, West Ham have been 4-0 down by half time, or they lost that 4-0. So I agree with you in as much as it was nice watching West Ham just play a proper game of football. And I was much less, I'd much rather be the type of annoyed I am today and was last night after a game like that than I was after Tottenham away, when we were abject and just totally pants. And just totally threw it away and just made it easy for them. The last thing we did was make it easy for Chelsea. And they had a strong 10 minutes in the second half. We had more shots on target than they did, 5-3. They had a lot of the ball, but didn't really do anything with it. They had 22 shots to our 14, but loads of them, mate, were absolutely, ballooned. I thought Chelsea were generally rubbish. I can't believe they were being chatted about for the title a few weeks ago. But the foul, I just don't get it. So I haven't watched it back on TV yet, which should make for an interesting chat here. So you would have watched it on TV, seen the highlights and the replays. I just saw it in the flesh. The foul on Jared Bowen, mate, is the most pathetic decision not to be given. And it's just so annoying with football these days. It's like, how different things are given, whether or not your team has the ball and depending on the position and the pitch. A foul's a foul. Like Jared Bowen's running up the pitch, and he just gets like totally steamed into. That contact isn't acceptable anywhere else on the pitch. And it's just like, never mind going back to it. I know the reason given was that it was too far away from the actual goal. And it's like, all right, but VAR shouldn't have to be intervening then. The referee's running up the pitch, chasing play, looking right at it. It's absolutely pathetic. It's obviously a foul.
Well, I was like obviously watching it at home. I just had was fortunate enough to see replays from different angles, and even before the replay, see it in real time. That's a foul. And the fact is that he's pressing and chasing down the ball going back to the goalkeeper. And it wasn't a great pass back as well. So there was a chance he may have even got there, or at least forced an error or something like that.
Yeah.
And he was doing that all night, and they flipped the angle round, so it's kind of like the players are running towards you. So you're as if you're in goal, sort of thing.
Yeah, which is where I was stood, basically. Yeah,
yeah, and it was. I think it's. I can't remember who the player was. Was it Colwell
I think it was. Yeah,
shoved him. Colwell isn't looking at where the ball is or where his teammate is. He's looking at Bowen. He's watching Bowen, and his sole purpose in that moment is to wipe him out. It's not like they've clashed or anything. He deliberately went out of his way, stepped out of his way to do that. And if you can't, if I could see it, and I'm 90, 100 miles away, and I can see it on the TV in real time.
Yeah.
How have you not seen it? And you're 10 yards away. I don't know, but at the same time, I do agree. Like VAR shouldn't need to get involved, but those sort of things, they should be getting involved in things like that. They should be in the referee's ear, going, "You've made a mistake there. It was a clear foul."
Was there other? Is that what it was then? That they just said there's other phases of play.
Well, no, the ball came back.
Elapsed.
The ball came back. It went out wide. The cross went in, and that was when
it all pinballed around everywhere.
And so, I mean, it was probably about 15 seconds in between that happening and then the ball being in the back of the net. 15, 20 seconons max.
Yeah, but it's like a clear consequence, isn't it? Like the goal happened because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't get it. It's just weird, but also incredibly unsurprising these days. These things happen, and they will always
rubbish.
happen.
I think it's rubbish. It's like there's a good game of football going on. Do you know what I mean? Two competitive teams. It's a perfectly good game of football. Like, just stop ruining it. Like, don't ruin it. Just give a foul when it's a foul, and everyone enjoys themselves, even when it's like. If it's against your team, if your player commits an obvious foul and the referee gives it, no fans are that annoyed, are they? It just ruins a spectacle. It's like
there wouldn't have been a single person in that stadium or in the entire country that would have gone, "Oh, no, that's not a foul," or "That was a little bit soft."
Exactly.
Like, it was just so obvious.
Yeah,
it's the most obvious foul that has never been given for me.
Yeah, but it's one of them, isn't it? It's just because he's pressing and he doesn't have the ball, and it's in. It's just because it's not one of those like threatening things.
Well, that's
a
yellow card. It's a yellow card in rugby. So, like, why is it not been given a foul in football?
What's the offence in rugby?
Well, clear obstruction of a player wiping out of the ball.
Right.
So, like, you can't do that in rugby. You can do it in NFL, but that's a weird sport. They wear pads and helmets for that.
Yeah, and they're literally like the whole thing is called blocking.
Yeah.
You
can't do it in rugby, and you shouldn't be able to do it in football. But clearly, we were wrong about that.
No, I'm just so annoyed, mate. I'm so annoyed. I've just remembered, by the way, one thing I will say, right, before we sort of move on to some other bits around this game. Two things. One, it was the best away end I've been in for ages. It was really good. The goal obviously helped.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, apparently, I sort of went on Twitter at half time because I'm carrying on my dry January into the middle of March. So all the lads went down to get a beer. Shout out to Tom Edwards, by the way, formerly of this parish, ex-West We Are West Ham podcast, who I watched the game with, him and the boys. Thoroughly enjoyed that indeed. So they all went down at half time, and I thought, I'll stay up here. Flicked on Twitter, Bianca Westwood sort of like having a go at Gary Neville, I think, who I understand said he hadn't heard a peep out of West Ham. I love Chelsea away anyway as an away game. And he was apparently slagging off the West Ham fans, saying he hadn't heard a peep out of them when we were deafening.
I don't remember him saying that, to be fair. He said a few very odd things throughout the game. But I don't recall him having a pop at West Ham fans. He may have done. But he would have been wrong because I could hear it through the TV. I thought the fans were great.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. We can release an album on Andy Irving songs at this rate. I think it was quite
mate, yeah. On to in a minute. I do want to touch on Andy Irving. So that was brilliant. And I just want to say hello, by the way, to the podcast listener or viewer who sort of tapped me on the way in. And it was really one of them awkward things that I was sort of going to like just edging, when you're edging your way into your seat along the row. And he just went, "All right, mate." And I looked and I didn't know him, so I assumed he meant someone else. So I just sort of carried on. He was all right. Grabbed it, tapped me on the shoulder. I was all right. And it was quite busy. He was like, "Yeah, you're Will, aren't you, from We Are West Ham?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, mate." But I was sort of like still walking and I kind of edged away from him. And I was like, oh yeah, I am. It all took me a bit by surprise. So, I didn't get his name or anything like that. But there was a couple of lads there who were podcast listeners / viewers who's obviously recognised my face. So he's obviously seen my mush before. Hello, if that was you. Sorry, I did drop us a line, send us a message on social. Sorry I didn't say hello or stop for a bit more of a chat. But I hope you didn't think I was being rude. So that's those are the two things I wanted to mention, James. Talk me through this offside thing then, right? Because I haven't watched it back. Obviously in the ground, classic, no communication with fans about what's going on. We knew it was a check for offside, didn't know who. But talk me through it.
Well, the cross has come in, and their striker with too many vowels in his name's jumped up to head the ball, and it's kind of it's gone over his head, but it's kind of skimmed his hair. It's probably touched his hair more than anything. That's probably why you couldn't see it on the screen. But then it's landed at Cucurella's feet. Cucurella's is about a mile offside, which is what they were looking at. He was well offside. So they were looking at if the striker's touched it and we can't allow the goal because then the ball comes in as a little bit of ping pong. Yeah, and then they were looking at whether when the first shot comes in from Cucurella's cross, it gets blocked, and there's I think the striker standing in front of Areola, and then looking at whether he's been unsighted by the first shot. But he's not really. I would have been a little bit like, we've got lucky there if they'd have ruled it out for that. And then obviously it lands at Neto and Neto bangs it in. So it really was whether there was contact on the head before it landed at Cucurella's feet. And it's just a shame it wasn't Cucurella going for the ball and not the other striker, because you would have known if it is Cucurella's hair because it's massive. But it wasn't. And I was watching it going, this might get ruled out, and they had loads of different angles and stuff, and you couldn't, sometimes you can see whether the spin of the ball changes, and you can kind of go, there's a touch something there. You couldn't even see that. Yeah, which made me think, maybe if it's touched anything, it's touched his hair. Yeah. But then I was like, okay, well, if they're looking at that, they haven't found an offside, so they're going to go back to the foul. No, let's look at something else instead. It's one of those where you've seen it given before, and then you've seen it not given before. It's a very 50-50 one for me. Yeah, fair enough.
Cole Palmer scores a second goal, and he didn't score the second goal. A few people at work today going, "That's not an own goal." It's like, shut up. Yes, it is. It's not going in unless that takes a whopper of deflection off of Aaron Wan-Bissaka's shin. Oh no, it was on target anyway.
It wasn't off target.
Yeah, Areola's saving it, even if it was.
It wasn't on target. It was a cross.
One thing, Cole Palmer, and to be fair to him, he sort of tore us a new one, didn't he, at London Stadium earlier this season, him and all of his Chelsea mates. I thought he was pretty pants. Madueke was particularly quiet and rubbish, I thought. I thought Chelsea generally were just quite rubbish. Jadon Sancho's a funny player. I must have seen him in the flesh before, I would have thought. But Obviously not very memorable. I think I would have done at least for England. But anyway, he was like really, really, really good on the ball. You always felt he was going to beat someone, but he never ever did anything with it. Like his pass was always decision making, was always cross whatever, was just always terrible. So he felt like I spent half the first half particularly watching him stand up Soufal and really tricky, subtle little bits of footwork. You think, blimey, you are like quality. That Soufal was just, you could tell, was like, God, I don't know what he's doing here. And he seemed to have the beating of him all the time. Then it was just like, oh yeah, I've done all that. Just the worst pass you've ever seen in history. So yeah, overall, I thought just Chelsea were pretty naff. I thought we sort of matched them in the first half, and yeah, and I don't think at all, like, you know, I don't think we didn't deserve the goal. Everyone, it looked great from where we were, but once again, sorry, before we go into that, I'm jumping around a bit. The Jared Bowen goal, by all accounts on the telly, it looked even better than it did in real life. It's obviously at the other end to where we were stood. So yeah, but it looked good from where we were. But just describe that.
But it really ran onto it, and we know Bowen now. As soon as he's in that position, you expect him to finish it, which he obviously did. But there was a split second where it looked like he'd left it too long for the shot.
Mm.
And if you got to watch it back to really understand what I mean, but there's like a bit where he cuts it slightly to his left, and then he kind of just pauses, and then he pulls the trigger. And it was at that moment where he paused. I was like, "No, what are you doing? What are you doing? Because you got two defenders on there." But you watch it back, and you're like, he knew exactly what he was doing. He was just taking his time, and it was a really, really, really good finish, top class finish. Yeah. Because he picked it up at a slight angle as well. It wasn't a given that, you know, it wasn't like it was an open goal. Like, he still had two defenders charging him down and a keeper to beat. It was just a really, really good finish for me. But it was just that slight pause before he pulls the trigger.
Hang on, I'm watching it now. God, that's mustard. He was a little bit closer than he looked, actually, from where we were. I thought he was like right in the corner of the penalty box. But that's decent pressure from Kudus, to be fair. Terrible pass from Colwell. But it's weird. Tosin, you think he's going to shut him down, and he just sort of watches him as he knocks in the back of the net. Yeah, you're totally right. Absolutely mustard finish. What a great goal that was.
Yeah, it was just that little pause where you're like, what are you doing? But you knew that he meant that. He was just taking his time.
Yeah.
It's a sign of a top-class finish of that.
Yeah, but totally agree. With proper old-school celebration that was as well in the away end. It's absolutely brilliant. Right, so talk to me then, James, about this, the second goal. Because, again, Palmer, I thought, was pretty pants all night. The home fans gave him this massive ovation as if he was like, well, good. But I was really unimpressed compared to, obviously, at London Stadium, he was very good, or capitalised on West Ham being naff. Yeah, the goal is just lucky. One thing, and I've had this ratified, right, by other fellow West Ham fans, I'm so bored of watching Aaron Wan-Bissaka jog everywhere. He's incapable of sprinting. Like, sixth gear for him, or if you've got one of the modern cars, you've got 6 gears. Obviously, my old car, 2003 Audi, is only got 5. But top gear for Wan-Bissaka is jogging, and it does my nutting. Honestly, it does my absolute head in. And I'm bored of watching it now. And it's funny, it's quite a few people I was chatting to anyway, and yesterday, and not having him either. I think there's still a few who are sort of in love with him a bit. And I think he's like, going to have a bit of Saïd Benrahma syndrome. I think people thinking how good he is. I'm not having him at all. I'm not having him. And it's just annoying. And that incident, the goal, was one of them where the ball goes out and he's just jogging across. I'm like, you're the right back, mate. Get out there and get on him and put him under pressure. But he saunters over and then he's sort of a bit out of position. And then, the goal happens. I'm not saying he obviously didn't mean to put it in the back of the net, but if you're right up tight to the bloke, he can't whip the ball in first time. At least make him beat you, like Sancho was doing to Soufal and sometimes Wan-Bissaka in the first half. It's like all this, he's the greatest, like, really good defensive right back, blah, blah, blah. Like, sprint sometimes. He just doesn't sprint. It does my head in.
I think he is very, very good defensive right back, but I agree that sometimes he looks almost half-assed.
Yeah, exactly what he looks.
And in that particular moment, leading up to that second goal, I completely agree with you. I noticed it as well. Like the ball goes out wide, and he just sort of saunters over a little bit and just has a little jog. If he's sprinting toward and getting on the guy's toes, he hasn't got time to think about getting to the byline or cutting it in and doing a 1-2 into the box.
Totally.
And he doesn't have that space.
No.
And if he runs out, gets on his toes, and he gets beaten. But we're talking about, a guy that's very, very good at one-on-one defending. Make it very hard for the guy to beat you. And he didn't do it, and he got a stud to it. But it was only a cross. If you look at the angle to it, it wasn't going anywhere near the goal. So it was definite own goal. And the reason why Cole Palmer got an ovation is because everyone in the ground thought he'd scored the winner. But
had he
held leave the ground and realised it was Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, one thing. I want actually two things here. One, Areola's save from Cole Palmer's free kick was the only sort of half decent thing Palmer did. Absolutely world class,
mate. We mentioned earlier about Gary Neville saying weird things.
Yeah,
that save happens, and the first thing out of Gary Neville's mouth is, "It's a good save. Wasn't as good as David Raya yesterday, though." Mate, what are you talking about? What's that got to do with anything?
It's like, excuse me? Yeah. What?
Get out of Arsenal's backside, for crying out loud.
What a weird thing to say.
That just really, and it was really angered me. I was like, what are you talking about? That's got nothing to do with anything. And if anything, it was better than David Raya's save, whichever one he made. I can't remember. I can't remember which one he was talking about. So, which says a lot. That just annoyed me. It was like, mate, like Arsenal aren't even playing. What are you talking about? Go away.
No, it was absolutely wicked, mate. Proper brilliant. I think we need to have a chat about his Barnet, though, Areola's.
He's gone very Carlos Soler, isn't he?
Well, I don't know if it's Carlos Soler even. Just I don't know what it is. At least Soler's got a little bit of sort of like trim up round the sides. Do you know what I mean? That sort of balanced out the amazing save I think that he made. Right, that's the sort of thing of it there. Andy Irving, mate. Right now, it's brilliant. Everyone was really backing him. The away end were in fine voice. And I do really feel it was his first start for the club, obviously. And I do really feel that the support, Tom was saying to me in the ground, he's like, do you reckon he sort of feels like it's a bit of a mug off and it's, he's sort of like get a chip on his shoulder. And I said, I think it's the polar opposite. I think he probably feels like a bit of an imposter in the team anyway, because of the sort of circumstances around his arrival at the club. We were all saying we don't even think there was like a article on the website when he first signed.
They haven't announced it. They still haven't announced it. Yeah.
Andy Irving doesn't technically play West Ham still because he hasn't been socialed. And I said polar opposite. I reckon because it probably feels a bit of an imposter. And you could sort of tell, he could obviously hear it. He didn't respond to any of the Andy give us a waves, which made me laugh. But I just felt it really lifted him. And I think he was, I felt it really done the world of good for him. And I think he did really well, mate, for 65 minutes. And then the fact is, he doesn't play Premier League football every week. Yeah, I'm sure he's playing for the development teams and all that sort of stuff to keep his fitness up. But it's just not the same intensity. And you can't replicate it, as any pro will tell you. And he was clearly exhausted. Like, he was clearly running on empty. And that's pretty much what happened in the lead up to, I think it was their second goal, wasn't it? Where he's sort of like falling over himself a bit. And he was clearly exhausted. It was just after Graham Potter had done the Soufal and Emerson sub. So I appreciate I'm jumping around a bit, but just as I'm remembering stuff. What did you make of the Soufal and Emerson subs? Because we were just like, what have you done there? Why are you bringing Mavropanos on firstly? And if you're going to change anything, Soler was a little bit anonymous other than that class run he did in the second half. And Andy Irving, I thought, had a really solid game, are clearly running on empty here. Make the change there. Like, all right, if you're going to bring Orford on, fine. And as much as we don't want to see Guido, but he's the answer there. It's odd to sub those two. Do you know why he did that?
It looked like he wanted to go to the back four, didn't he? That's what it was. He felt like we were getting a little bit, we we were getting a bit overexposed, and so he was like, right, let's go for back four and just reshape it a little bit. I mean, we all know that Graham Potter makes changes to change the formation to impact games, and yeah, he would
certainly impacted the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think the circumstances around the second goal suggest that did it happen before the second goal or after the second goal?
Which Irving?
That substitution, the fullbacks.
Oh no, the substitution happened before the goals because it was Mavropanos, wasn't it? I'll double check the timings exactly because I'm not exactly certain whether it was before the first or the second.
If it's happened before either of them, really, I think around the circumstances around both goals, I don't think it was anything to do with the shape of the team or the formation or the tactics.
All right,
they were
mate.
Suddenly they were cutting us open.
Yeah, it was just before the second goal. So it's Mavropanos and Skulls on for Emerson and Soufal.
So, and actually, after that second goal, we didn't look bad. We were going for it, and we still had our chances to get an equaliser. So, in terms of the decision to make that change, I don't think it was a terrible one. Maybe it's just the order in which he did it. Take Irving off first. But then kind of that's, it's great if the game could be played in hindsight, but I haven't got a problem with the subs. I think, he made those subs with the view of going to a back four, tweaking the system, and we didn't look bad. We didn't suddenly crumble and then concede 3 or 4 goals after making that change. We looked still.
Well, no, we conceded 1 2 minutes later.
Yeah, but I mean, look at the nature of it. It was a cross that got deflected in the goal. I mean, that could have happened without the subs.
Yeah, I didn't feel like we were crumbling before, though. I didn't feel like we were struggling that badly.
He's clearly seen something, and gone,
that's what I'm saying.
And at that time, Chelsea were beginning to get a little bit on top. They were getting they had a little bit more of the ball. They were pressuring. They had a lot more time in and around our box. And maybe
I think that's because of midfield, though. Honestly, mate,
it may have been that. But Graham Potter's gone. Okay, well let's just go to a back four. Change the formation and then see the impact of that. And to be fair, I mean, we go and concede after for a fluky deflection. But after that, Chelsea didn't really give us much bother, not as much as pressure as they were giving us before the substitutions. So I haven't got really a problem with it.
You're wrong. This isn't a subjective matter. You're totally wrong. And then sure enough, he then brings Soler and Irving on 77 minutes. And then when he brings Lewis Orford and Danny Ings on, you think, what's the point? What is the point? I mean, how bad must get? I know Guido is bad, but he must be really bad if he didn't even get on.
I did think that when he brought Orford on instead, I thought, that's not good for Guido, is it?
No, it really isn't. Not good at all. Right, one thing I've got, Danny Ings, I'm not going to talk about him again. You can't watch it. One thing I do want to address, Jonesy, I tweeted this off the podcast account last night.
I know what you're going to say, and I'm not happy about it.
You're not, right. So my tweet was, I'll just read it. Right. I've just read 2 tweets saying Luis Guilherme looked good when he came on. What were they showing on TV? Because he looked abysmal from the away end. Honestly, mate, and I toned that down a little bit. When I saw a couple of tweets, I was like, so sad that those 2 people are on crystal meth. Because
no, I think it.
Everything he was abjectly grim. One of them said you can really see that Luis Guilherme is a real talent. Honestly, mate, it was pathetic. Like, absolutely pathetic. And I know things often look different, don't they, on telly in the flesh. Everything was so ponderous and slow. We were going, we know what he's trying to do there. We know where he's going to go. Couldn't beat anyone. Kept losing the ball. Passing terrible. Like, he was awful. And he only come on 87 minutes.
He almost set up the winner. Oh, they equalised at the end. Like, that run he made from halfway... Bit of pace, ran into the box.
Awful decision making. Awful decision making.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, he's running. The one where he runs through the middle, and then there's a blatantly obvious pass out to Wan-Bissaka, who's in a perfect position to whip it in.
No, he plays it to Jared Bowen on the other side, who then whips it into Kudus, who then sees his shot blocked.
Who then, and slowed it right down.
What do you mean slowed it right down? It was a pass through into the box.
Nah, it properly slowed it down. It was so the wrong option. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was so much space on the right. The channel was massive, and then you got players running in, Bowen and Kudus as well. Plus Guillermo would have been there. You play it out wide. No, I know, but that was a wrong ball. You play it out wide to Wan-Bissaka, and then he's got 3 options to aim at in the middle. He had loads more space. Absolutely terrible. And then Bowen's, it all slows down. Chelsea gets some players back. Plays it across to Kudus, who was shut down well easily by the defence. Terrible decision making.
Just a quick one. I've got 2 things to say on this. First of all, clearly he's still very, very nervous. The lad's 18, living in a foreign country, doesn't speak a word of the language, and has been given 3 minutes at the end of most games. So
I speak the language. He's been here for nearly 6 months.
So I think it's harsh to start calling him abysmal and rubbish and all the rest of it. The lad's barely had an opportunity. You wouldn't be calling Lewis Orford rubbish, who barely did anything when he got on the pitch yesterday. Not going to start calling him out because he's.
I would if he did what Guillermo did,
because he's 8 years old and has barely played a game of Premier League football. So I'm not gonna start kicking off at youngsters. But secondly, Jack Elderton, friend of the show, tweeted about it today and said there is a player in Luis Guillermo.
Well, Jack Elderton's on crystal meth as well.
The guy has better tactical brain than you and I put together. The guy knows a player, and
he knows his stuff.
I trust Jack. I trust Jack's.
We all make mistakes, though, James.
Over yours, mate.
But what based on what? What's he said? What's his technical analysis?
Let me see if I can get it up. Hang on. I just think I'm
just not having it. Whatever you say, I'm not having it.
Just watch that Guillermo cameo back, and something special happened there.
Oh my God!
Listen, the nerves disappeared and revealed a serious talent. It was his game in stoppage time, and his quality almost dragged. Listen, it was his game in stoppage time, and his quality almost dragged an equaliser out of a depleted, tired team away at Stamford Bridge. 18 years old. I agree.
Oh my God! Honestly, Jack, there's get in touch. There'll be rehab centres. I know crystal meth's not quite as common in the UK as it is in other parts of the world, but seriously, Jack, get help.
He's then basically said exactly what I've just said. Someone's asked, were you surprised that he was on the right? And he said, no, that's where I expected to be seeing this season. I haven't been surprised at all that it's been less than 50 minutes each time. It's probably good that he's been rushed through. He hasn't been rushed through despite injuries. He's still a kid, only just leaving home for a new country with a different language, etc.
Get
off the kids back. Get off the kids back.
Not having it.
Leave him alone.
Not having it. When he goes to, where's Al's old, what's his name? Was it Luigi Al? The defender, I said, the Brazilian guy we signed, who I said guaranteed would never play for West Ham.
He was supposed to be sold in January, but I still don't think he's left. I still think he's knocking about. His agent was flogging him about, but still there.
Loves it too much, did he? Like Guillermo will go to Saudi Arabia. Well, I don't even think he'll go there. Someone was saying get him to Saudi. It's like, I can't be interested in him. Honestly, but not having it. Absolutely not having it. One other player I'm definitely not having, James. I've mentioned about Aaron Wan-Bissaka already. We've done that one. I'm sorry. And there's a few, I'm not the only one. In the away end, there's a few people sharing these sentiments exactly. Mohammed Kudus, seriously, absolute one-trick pony, needs to start coughing up some end product.
Yeah.
The amount of times he gets the ball, he tries to dribble with it, he sometimes beats 1 or 2 players, and then he runs into someone inevitably, or plays a momentum-killing pass. I know he does good things that people like the look of, and I think that's probably perhaps what makes it a bit more frustrating, is that he does the first part of what could be a promising move really well. And if you've got the ability to take 1 or 2 players out of the game like he does, fine, but don't just use that trick every single time you get the ball, because it's so predictable. And teams are just knowing what he's going to do. And honestly, I mean, I haven't got the stats actually. I don't know if I can find them anywhere. But seriously, his ball retention stats last night must have been absolutely abject. And you could just tell he'd get the ball and Chelsea players would be like, oh, we know what he's going to do. And even if he did beat a couple, it's like he'd break into a position. You think, right, lay off, 5-yard pass, 10-yard pass, whatever. So the switch is on, you've created some space, and he just keep going. And honestly, I'm bored of it. It's been weeks now. I don't know what it is. I'm just going to get them up now. His stats for this season. But seriously, and I've said it time and time again on the radio, on this podcast, anyone who asks me, people thinking there's someone queuing up to pay 80 million for Mohammed Kudus, snap their arm off. I will drive him to the Emirates to sign that deal if that's on the table. 3 goals, 1 assist from 19 Premier League games this season. So 3 goals, 2 assists in all competitions. Not good enough.
I agree. He's not been good enough this year. There were reports over the weekend that there had been a late bid from an unnamed Saudi club, and the club and West Ham basically went no. And I acknowledge that it's probably a little bit too late to cash in on him in the window. But at the same time, I think I've tweeted this as well. At the same time, wouldn't have been that upset if he was sold.
No. Depends how much it was. You know how much it was?
No. But it would have been a fair whack, I would have thought. But
yeah,
I just think this season, someone asked me, I can't remember who it was. Someone asked me on Twitter and said, "Oh no, what do you think? What do you think it is?" I think it's probably a mixture of, I just don't think he got on with Lopetegui. I think that's very well documented, and didn't really agree with the system. He's had
someone tell him he's left. Someone tell him Lopetegui's gone.
Yeah, I think he also had a couple of issues with while on Ghana duty, didn't he? I think that was one of the byproducts of his red card at Tottenham. But then I think he's just struggled for confidence ever since. His problem is that he tries too hard.
I'll leave it out.
No. Listen. He gets the ball and he tries too hard. He takes one too many touches. He runs into trouble too much. I can't remember the last time I saw him play the simple pass.
Yeah, tell me about it.
He's one of the fastest players in the squad. He should be passing the ball and then trying to beat
going again.
Make some space.
Yeah,
pull defenders out. And instead he's just every time he gets the ball, he looks like he just wants to do it all himself, and he's trying too hard to be the guy. It's almost like he's trying to replicate that goal against Freiburg every time he gets the ball.
Yeah.
He did it a couple of times yesterday against Chelsea, just ran into the box and then suddenly just runs into a couple of players and gets dispossessed. It's like, stop it. Just play the ball. Just pass it. That's his issue this year.
Couldn't agree more. He reminds me of like a kid, when you're at like the goals soccer centres or whatever, or the 7-a-side I play in Hackney every Wednesday. Every now and then we'll get a ringer, right? And it'll be some young kid on the sidelines, 18-year-olds, like running around with a load of sort of like, overweight 30-year-olds or whatever. And he literally, you'll get one of these youngsters come on and they'll be mustard. You could tell they're really skillful and they'll try and do that. They'll try and take everyone on. And all like the old timers are there, like going, all right, come on, mate. But I know you're clearly better than all of us, but like pass to us still play a normal game of football. And it gets annoying, and I think that's exactly what he's like. It's doing my absolute head in this season. Right, anything else, James, on the Chelsea game? I haven't actually. I thought chatting to you about it might make me feel better. I'm not. I'm still annoyed. I'm annoyed about so much because I think that game was there for the taking. I think a bit of better decision making from Potter and certainly from our players in the second half when Chelsea were there to be got at. All right, I know their goals might have been a bit fortunate, and I agree, but I do think we left some opportunities out there on the pitch, and that was very frustrating. And even Aaron, like a few times, what annoyed me, the amount of ridiculous shots we had from like miles outside the penalty. Yeah, Aaron Cresswell did it twice. He tried to shoot from that free kick from like the halfway line, which was mental. And a couple of others, him and Emerson, I think, like balls bouncing about outside the box. Just like smashed over the bar into the away end. You're like, take a touch. Oh, what about that? Oh my God, I just remembered. What about Danny Ings? What about Danny Ings trying to chip the keeper at the end? That really was the end for me. Yeah. Honestly, mate. Honestly. Like so many different options you could have taken there. Take the touch and keep the pressure on. Just I'm really annoyed, really annoyed. And I think, that's perhaps what the irritation is. West Ham shot ourselves in the foot as much as Chelsea being any good because they really weren't. Anything else for you to add, James? I appreciate I've just dominated this.
I was going to try and cheer you up. Harrison's just got home and he tried just walking in, and I had to tell him to go away. And I think he's crying in the other room. I was going to bring him in and get him to try and cheer you up, mate.
That would have worked, actually.
Should we do that now? So I get him in. He's a bit upset.
I'll tell you what. We'll end the Chelsea section. Go and get Harrison, cheer him up. He can come on a podcast.
I want the listeners to hear as well because I want him to really.
We'll cheer each other up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, stay with us for Harrison's input and a little bit of chat on the transfer market and some final thoughts next. Hello, mate. How's it going? You're on mute. I can't hear you. How are you? How's it going?
Hello.
How's it going? Where have you been all day?
School.
Have you? What did you do at school?
Nothing.
Really? What, all day?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you hear the West Ham score last night? Yeah. What did you think of it? What did you think of the game? Yeah. What do you think about West Ham this season? Have you been watching many games?
Who's your favourite player?
Bowen.
Yeah? Why is Bowen your favourite?
Why is Bowen your favourite player? Because he won the trophy, didn't he?
Because he won the trophy.
Oh, the Conference League. Yeah, that was good, wasn't it? Have you got a West Ham shirt yet?
Yeah.
Have you? What one have you got?
You got a West Ham shirt.
Yeah, which one?
What do you think of Arsenal?
Boo. What are you doing tonight?
Boo.
What are you doing tonight? Is it your bedtime?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's my bedtime soon, I think, as well, to be honest. Maybe.
Right. All good?
Yeah.
See you later, mate.
Bye, Will.
I will.
Bye, mate.
Daddy, once you're done tomorrow, I want to record myself.
Okay, you can record yourself tomorrow.
Yeah, there we go. There's the future of the We Are West Ham podcast right there. I must admit, James, and as I've sort of already slagged off Luis Guilherme this week on the podcast, so I'm sort of in the mood for having a go at kids anyway. I would say Harrison's podcasting skills maybe not quite at the required level just yet.
He's getting there.
Yeah. I mean, mainly lots of the thumbs up that he was doing and the visual actions, not quite really appreciate it's an audio medium.
Good for YouTube, though, isn't it? I suppose.
yeah, maybe so. I'd sooner have Harrison on the pitch last night than the sort of most of the players, particularly in the second half, certainly Danny Ings. Right, Jonesy, the transfer window. Evan Ferguson arrives on deadline day, loan to the end of the season, no option to buy or anything like that. Brighton are very keen to keep hold of him, and I think from their point of view, they are keen to get him back and fit and firing. And then, if they're going to part with him at the end of the summer, hopefully he has a brilliant end of season for West Ham and they can sell him for about 100 mil. They're very keen for him to be part of the Brighton setup. So not interested in a loan deal or anything like that. But I'm really excited about it, providing he can stay fit.
Yeah, I think the problem we've had over the years is that we've been signing strikers that have arrived with big names and a lot of expectation, but who haven't really fit the system.
Totally. Couldn't agree more.
Or kind of suited the Premier League or whatever. And finally, we've signed a striker that we know is going to fit the system. Like Graham Potter gave him his debut when he was 16 years old. Like his introduction to Premier League football was in a Potter system. He knows exactly what's required to play under Graham Potter. Graham Potter knows exactly what he's getting out of him. So this is the first time for years where we've signed a striker and you can be pretty confident that if he stays fit, he's going to be decent. I'm not saying he's going to start banging in 10, 15 goals between now and the end of the season, but he's going to make an impact, and he's going to be a good signing for us if he can stay fit. The problem is that we're having to say if he can stay fit. That's the only thing in the back of my mind going. But it is, I think it's a really, really strong signing. A couple of years ago, people were talking about it being £100 million striker.
Yeah.
And now we've managed to get him on loan. If it's only for 5 months, it is what it is. But I've seen a lot of people complain, what a waste of time. Typical David Sullivan, won't spend the money. So that's not how this one works. We wanted a striker. They had one. We had to take the deal, and that's it. Someone went, but we need someone for longer than 13 games. Yeah, obviously, but
like we also need someone for the next 13 games.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, what would you? Because trouble is, though, people
just if we can't solve the long-term striker issue, then don't worry about the short-term. Just don't bother.
Yeah. So, but the trouble is, though, like people would have kicked off massively if they just went, oh, okay, it's loan only. Oh, well, don't worry about it then. We won't bother signing a striker this January.
Yeah,
people would have gone, what are you doing? So I think it's a good deal all round. And the terms of the contracts and the terms of the loan for me are irrelevant. We've got a striker, and he's currently fit. He must be because he passed his medical. So I'm buzzing about that.
Well, listen to I think he's on his wages between 50 and 70 a week. I think we're covering most of that. So Potter gave him his debut in the 21-22 season at Brighton. He's only 20, bear in mind. He scored 6 goals in 19 games in the following season, 22-23, when he burst onto the scene, and then 6 in 27 the season after that. He's missed 11 months out of the last 18 with injury. The ankle is sort of like his most recent issue, and that's a bit of a recurring one. He's played 12 times this season until another ankle problem in December. He's only scored once, but he's only played 237 minutes this season. But look, I think if we can keep fit, it's a brilliant answer. And exactly what you said, Jonesy, and I said this earlier on when I was talking about it. What I love the most about him, West Ham need a striker, right? The successful ones we've had in recent seasons and the sort of system we're playing is someone who's 7 out of 10 at all attributes, is what I say. 7 out of 10 quick, 7 out of 10 physicality, 7 out of 10 in the air, 7 out of 10 finishing, right? We didn't have that with Skamaka and Haller because they were too good at one specific thing and didn't fit the profile. Antonio's a bit of an all-rounder. Arnautovic was that. Diafra even was that. And I think that's the same with Ferguson. He's sort of a robust bloke, fairly quick, fairly good in the air, good finisher, tidy.
I think it's the closest player we're going to get to Liam Delap.
Yeah, God, what a great comparison. Brilliant.
Very, very similar build, very similar stature, very quick.
Yeah.
Can run in behind, but good in the air as well, powerful. Liam Delap would have been amazing, but no way Ipswich are going to sell him. So there's the next best thing for me. I'm very, very happy with it.
Yeah, brilliant. James Ward-Prowse coming back. I mean, it's really good news. I was surprised we let him go. Another stupid Lopetegui / Tim Stein decision. And I think brilliant. Like you wouldn't rather have him than Guido Rodriguez. I think great to have him back, almost like a new signing, weirdly.
It made so much sense at the beginning of January, let alone right at the end. Like, he was barely in the game for Forest. We're desperate for midfielders with legs. So it just made so much sense. So I can't imagine he's going to go straight into the starting 11 and play every week.
No.
But he's a good.
He'd have come on last night, wouldn't he?
Come on last night, 100%. So it's a good option to have in the squad. And given all the injuries we've had recently, we need the depth. We started the season with some decent squad depth, and suddenly we're depleted again. So having him back is massive for us, I think.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Right, I think that's about it from me and Jonesy. I think I've cheered up a bit, just not loads. So quite annoyed and angry about it. Bit of a long day, but we have got a break, Jonesy, haven't we? We're obviously out of the cup, so out of action this weekend, and then we've got Brentford at home is our next game on Saturday the 15th of February in the Premier League. We will have an opposition view, hopefully with TalkSport's Nat Sawyer. a huge Brentford fan, of course, next week. But yeah, you won't hear from us until then. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please do, while you've got a bit of a break over the international break, sign up and support James and I at patreon.com/wearewestham podcast. Not an international break. I know what you're going to say.
No, it's the FA Cup, isn't it?
I know. I said earlier we're not in the cups anymore. So it isn't an international break, but it's a break for West Ham because we bowed out the cups as quickly as we possibly could this season because we didn't want to have anything to play for come February. But as I was saying, yeah, if you want ad-free listening and the podcasts a day before everyone else, then sign up to patreon.com/wearewestham podcast. That is the offering. As we said when me and Jones set it up, we didn't want to anyone who couldn't pay or didn't want to, we didn't want them to miss out on a single minute of content. So you don't get any less if you don't pay. But yeah, as much as you get it ad free and a day before, we'd like to think of it more as lots of the people who signed up already have done, and just supporting me and James and just showing a bit of appreciation for the podcast if you enjoy it, and to ensure that it's a viable endeavour for me and James. So if you want this podcast to carry on before the end of the season, then do consider signing up at patreon.com/wearewestham podcast. Don't forget to follow us on socials as well. Just search We Are West Ham Podcast on your favourite social media platforms and you'll find us there, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. West Ham, a massive and infuriating evening at Stamford Bridge, but at least we look like a normal football game. Up the Hammers. West Ham are massive, and we'll speak to you next week.